Hi, my name is Jessie Quack, and I'm the editor of the Crooked series of sci-fi crime anthologies. I'll tell you a little bit more about that after the presentation. But today we're going to listen to C.E. Clayton reading from one of her stories that's in Volume 2. So, C.E. Clayton is an award winning author born and raised in the greater Los Angeles area. After going to the traditional career route and becoming restless, she went back to her first love, writing, and hasn't stopped. She's the author of a young adult fantasy series, The Monster of Selkirk, the creator of the cyberpunk Earden novels, and her horror short stories have appeared in anthologies across the country. When she's not writing, you can find her treating her fur babies like humans, constantly drinking tea, and trying to convince her husband to go to more concerts. And reading. She does read quite a bit. So more about C.E. Clayton, including her blog, book reviews, social media presence, and newsletter can all be found on her website, which is below in the links. All right, enjoy.
So just quickly before I start with Renegade Havoc, it does take place technically after the events of Resistor, which is pictured on the screen, but you don't have to read Resistor to understand what's going on. This is totally separate, and it won't give away anything that's not already in the synopsis. So we are all fine there for you to enjoy it. So without further ado, here's a little taste of the cyberpunk world of Eridan, which does include some magic mixed in with its high-tech cyberpunk backdrop. Just think about it, yeah? For the past few weeks, that was exactly what Pima Tran tried not to do. Eleanor was like a fucking earworm that no cigarette or case of beer could drown in Pima's mind. She refused to believe Eleanor's words of caution about their boss. Pema had worked for Cosman von Brandt most of her adult life after he paid her bail following another fight at a synth club, one she hadn't even started. Cosman never explained why he paid her bail, only that he recognized talent when he saw it and wanted to offer her a job in his organization, smuggling illegal, weaponized magitech throughout the city-state of Uria. Pema didn't have anyone else at that point. Her family was either dead or had cut her off. She was far too broke to say no to a job, even one that could get her more jail time than any of her brawls ever could. Cosman had found Pema when she was 2 steps away from making a living on the toxic ground level of Uria without an air filtration unit. He had saved her and had given her more than a job. He'd given her a purpose again, and through working with him, Pema met the love of her life, Talon Roxas. Pema owed Cosman more than just her life. She made a discontented growl deep in her throat and glanced around her cubicle apartment. It was the same small space she and Talon had shared when they first moved in together, when they were still part of Eleanor's crew. They had no windows in their 2-room unit. This low in the Sky Tower apartments, they wouldn't have had a view of anything anyway. Instead, there were 2 hollow windows on opposite walls in the main room that served as everything except their bedroom. Each hollow window showed a soundless scene of the city from higher up, above the pollution where the grimy air didn't hide the glitter of neon. Pema could have set it to anything, forests, beaches, but those vistas weren't as real or comforting to her as a bustling city. The mauve walls hadn't changed since they moved in either. Pema never did get around to patching the dent that Eleanor had made when she tripped over the secondhand sofa, drunk and laughing. Pema sighed and dropped her gaze to the concrete flooring. Eleanor popping back up had complicated things, leaving their crew fractured all over again in ways that could never be repaired. And Pema hated complicated. Now Talon was starting to question things that she never had before, like if Cosman's saving Pema had really been as fortuitous, as coincidental as she had originally thought. Pema didn't agree with that. Cosmo got nothing from pulling Pema out of jail when he did. He had given her a chance to be more, be better than just some angry drunk prowling the synth clubs for the rest of her life. But Talon kept wondering if Eleanor had been right to get out of Cosman's organization. Pema lit a cigarette and put it to her lips, inhaling deeply. She shut her eyes, trying to escape the images that burned behind her eyelids of what happened when you quit on Cosman, or worse, betrayed him. Pema was still furious at Eleanor. She'd never left Cosman in the first place. Talon nearly getting killed on a botched delivery run would have never happened. Her crew, her friends, would all still be working with Cosman. Things would still be good. But no, Eleanor had to go and complicate things. Pema had leaned more into her vices, smoking and drinking, to help dull the edge of her anger, much to Talon's chagrin. who instead lost herself in her work in order to avoid reality. But Pema didn't have her girlfriend's acumen for explosive work. Talon could lose days in her workshop forgetting to eat or drink entirely if Pema didn't go in and check on her. Talon had a real talent for taking pieces of junk, malfunctioning pieces of smart tech, and making them go boom in ways Pema could never have thought possible. Give Talon an hour, a seatbelt, a handful of broken cybernetic enhancers, and an empty beer can, and she could bring down a hypersonic plane like it was easy. Talon was one of Cosman's most valued explosives experts, but despite that, Cosman did not excuse Talon from witnessing the punishment that awaited traitors. Talon preferred to work long hours in her workshop after rather than risk the image of such torture plaguing her in her sleep. Pema slapped the side of her head with the palm of her hand a few times to put an end to her spiraling thoughts. She took another long drag on her cigarette and held the smoke in her lungs until they started to burn before slowly exhaling and getting to her feet. Stretching, she moved to the cloudy mirror in the far wall of the bedroom and gave herself a long, hard stare in the mirror. Traitors deserve what they get. You follow me, Pema? Cosman takes care of those who take care of him. And you, Pema, you take care of the boss. Got it? Her voice was deep and gravelly, a bit more hoarse than normal with her shitty sleep, but she liked to believe the pep talks were working. Those purple bags under her narrow, rich brown eyes were definitely not because of the image of Talon nearly getting killed haunting her dreams. Those extra streaks of gray in her long black hair definitely did not have anything to do with the torment she witnessed Cosman doling out. That ashen twinge to her bronze-hued olive skin was definitely not because she had replaced most meals with bottles of beer, and those extra lines around her thin lips and brows were definitely not from scowling all the time. No, the pep talks were definitely working. You, she said, jabbing a finger into her reflection on each word as if that would help solidify them. Do not fuck with Cosman. You owe him. Then, as if her words manifested the man himself, her communicator chimed. I have a job for you and your charming girlfriend, my dear. Despite her churning stomach, there was a spark of hope and relief clawing up from her gut to warm her chest. She was quick to respond in the affirmative, then stubbed out her cigarette on the way out of her apartment. Pema practically ran down the hallway, its moldy stains blurring into one greenish yellow streak toward the rusty service elevator that would take her to Talon's workshop. The elevator doors opened and she darted down a new hall identical to the one on her floor. Pema stopped outside a narrow door, checked the hallway to make sure no one was snooping before slipping inside. Forced to walk sideways down the musty steel hallway, she had to squeeze behind the building's air purifier before getting to Talon's office. It would have been safer for Talon to have a workshop in Cosman's mansion, but he didn't want to have Talon's activities so obviously linked to him and his work, which, sure, made sense, but it still seemed dangerous for Talon to do her work next to such a vital piece of technology for their whole complex. Cosman wouldn't even let Talon operate from one of the money laundering businesses he had spread throughout Uria. Plausible deniability. You know better than to question that shit, she scolded herself as she stepped up to the reinforced metal door. Pema punched in her private code to enter Talon's workshop without thinking about it, realizing too late that she should have absolutely let her girlfriend know ahead of time that she was on her way. The automatic door hissed up, and the smell of burning rubber slammed its acrid fist into Pema's nose, squeezing the air from her lungs. Sputtering, she flung her arm over her face and gasped, "Babe, air filters," before a fit of coughing overtook her completely. Talon poked her head up, but all Pema could see through her blurring vision was the black helmeted mask Talon wore. There was a muffled curse, the clanky industrial fans and purifiers kicked in, and the smell of burning rubber was replaced with a cool ozone scent so full of static energy that the hair on Pema's arm stood on end. She stumbled inside, coughing a few more times for good measure. Then the automatic doors closed behind her. Ripping off her breathing apparatus, Talon caught Pema before she could knock anything explosive off the cluttered tables. Love, we talked about this, Talon chastised, but it was more out of habit and there was no real heat in her smoky voice. Pema blinked the tears from her eyes and looked up at her athletically tall girlfriend. Talon's jade green eyes were as bright as neon, shining as always with delight whenever Pema was around, even if she pretended to be annoyed. Her smooth, deep ebony skin was dewy with sweat that glistened most noticeably on her skull, shining through the barely there black fuzz. But her dark lips were turned up in a soft smile, her round cheeks making her eyes crinkle with the grin. Pema couldn't help herself. She stood on her toes and gave Talon a gentle kiss on those incredibly soft, full lips. Talon's eyes fluttered, half closing as she pulled back slightly. What are you doing here? And not that I'm not happy to see you, but Talon said, waving vaguely to the random pieces of text strewn about the steel tables. Pema took a deep breath, committing Talon's soft smile to memory before she took it away with her news. Cosman's got a job for us. They waited until the service bot had left them in the vehicle depot. Only when they were alone, piling into the sleek black transport, did either relax enough to fully exhale. The first step to the operation completed without being picked up on a government spy drone. So far, so good. Something feels off to me, Talon whispered. Pema shrugged, waving her fob over the ignition and initiating the virtual intelligence auto driver. Seems standard to me, a simple drop in exchange. How's this any different than the stuff Cosman had us do a million times before? Talon rolled her big green eyes, picking at her lower lip. Right, sure. That was the stuff we did when we were grunts, new little babies. We haven't done runs like this for decades, love. Haven't needed to since you ranked up, since Cosman regulated me to arms explosives. You're a sergeant, Pema. You don't send people like us to these drops. But hey, for argument's sake, let's pretend this still fits our job description. Cosman's sending one of his generals on this run with us, to man the op from the ground. Why? It's dumb as shit. Too risky for someone who spent centuries as the undisputed king of magitech smuggling. Something about all this is different. And Cosman doesn't do different when it comes to his shit. Not without reason. Thank you.
Hey, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that reading. So I promised I'd tell you a little bit more about Crooked, and here we are. So what Crooked is a series of sci-fi crime anthologies that are edited by me. And the thing that sets this anthology series apart is that it exclusively focuses on including stories that are part of a bigger universe. So if you read one story by an author, say if you really enjoyed what you just heard, you can go to that author's site, which will be below in the show notes, and you can read more stories set in that universe. So the idea is to give readers kind of more of what they love and introduce them to other authors. So for example, if you're a big fan of one person's universe and you find, oh, they've got a story in Crooked, you can go read that story, and then you might find other stories by similar authors, and then you can go read their world. So kind of just a way of helping readers explore and find more authors that they love. And so if you enjoyed what you heard, please go support that author. Follow the links below. You can go buy the anthology and read more stories, or listen to more of the presentations of people reading excerpts from their stories on this YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe there. And I look forward to bringing you more exciting sci-fi crime stories. Take care out there.